Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Safari Mack Returns to Africa. I'm Safari Mack, your guide and host, helping you make connections to the wild. Well, technically, we're not actually in Africa. Now, this season is in Africa. However, we are now on the African island nation of Madagascar, where today we're going to spend the next couple weeks looking in just a couple of iconic species. We're starting today with the Fossa. I know the Husa? The Fossa. You know, those guys that are always annoying King Julian at his parties and gobbling them all up. Or we can also call them by their Latin name of Cryptoprocta feryx. But before we begin, if you're new to my channel, hit that like and subscribe button. Check out my Facebook page for content on conservation. And if you have a question about animals, or if there's an animal that you want me to do in the future, you just have to send me an email, which you will always find the link to down in the description below. But if you're ready, I'm ready. Let's get to it. The island of Madagascar is a lot like Australia. Having cut off from the rest of the world roughly around millions and millions of years ago, as well as a little bit of India, Madagascar has become its own specialized habitat, and as a result, the animals are highly unique. Some of the weirdest oddities thrive here, including our subject today, the Fossa. Now, when the first explorers came to this land and discovered all these animals, when they first saw the Fossa, they thought it was like maybe a cat because, it does kind of look like a cat, but it's not. Not a feline or a canine. Now, it's part of the carnivore family, but here's a little carnivore family tree so you can see exactly what we're dealing with. See, there's the dog, there's the cat, but here is the Fossa, Cryptoprocta. Now, the Fossa really are actually its very own kind of animal. You see, 24 to 20 million years ago, these early mongoose-like animals came to the island nation of Madagascar, and from there they would evolve their own bloodlines, evolving into this group, which is called, or the family called Eurypleridae, which are basically Madagascar carnivores. So as a result, that means basically they are found nowhere else on the planet and have their own specialized ways of surviving on this weird island nation. Now, let's talk about their habitat, their lifestyle, and reproduction. Now, Fossas are basically found throughout the island of Madagascar. However, studies have shown that they are more at home at the eastern dry deciduous forests, the eastern rainforests, like we see back here, and even the southern spiny forest. Basically, where there's a lot of cover and there are lots of different prey for these creatures to be able to hunt and take down. So, the Fossa is actually considered to be active both night and day. Of course, any time of the day or any time of the night, these guys are highly active as they're able to track down what they're looking for, whether it's food, territory, or, in some cases, mates. Now, when it comes to their social life, they basically are considered to be very solitary animals. However, it has been shown that a 2009 study actually showed three male Fossas actually working together to take down and eat a species of lemur. Now, Fossas, though, as I said, they're generally solitary animals. Of course, though, that's not to say when it's mom and her cubs. Usually, after a gestation period of around 3 months, in which their way of mating is actually fairly different. See, it's the female is the one trying to attract all the males as many different males as possible to a certain tree that she'll be in, and she will mate with a number of these as a way of probably increasing genetics. It's a thing that you could see in cats sometimes, but then again, this is not really a feline after all, now is it? So after a gestation period of around three months, she'll give birth to around 2 to 4 cubs, which are born blind and helpless and only begin to open their eyes after they reach 2 weeks of age. By the time they're around 15 to 20 months old, they're ready to strike out on their own and take down prey. Speaking of which, let's get into their diet. Now, as we know, for lemurs, they have been attacked and eaten by the dreaded Fossa. That's right. Basically, they are the only large mammal that is able to take down and eat lemurs. And what makes that pretty impressive, these creatures are actually hunting animals that are almost 90% of their own body weight. The fact that they're able to take them down and kill them, to me, that's pretty impressive, especially when you compare it with other species of lemurs that are pretty large, like the Bindi lemur. Forgive me if I'm not saying the species right. We'll get to that a little later on. But lemurs are basically their diet. But that's not to say it's the only thing that they'll eat. They'll also go after birds, amphibians, insects, and of course, reptiles. Whatever they can find, they are adaptable and are easily capable of eating as many different things as possible. Now, of course, getting to all that good eating means that they have to have a lot of specialized features or adaptations. So now we get into the wild things. For one, these guys, their hind feet can turn at around 180 degrees, which allows them to actually go down trees head first, even grass branches that are below. And of course, being an ambush predator, whether they're in the trees or on the ground, they have to have a form of balance. Thankfully, the tail comes in good use, especially with the tail making up nearly half of its own length. So here's from the nose to the rump, and then look at that tail. Can you imagine yourself with a tail that long? And of course, if they were trying to get away from danger or fight, they have a kind of very unusually smelly scent gland that they can emit whenever they're just trying to get away from danger. Now, unfortunately, Fossas are facing problems despite their unusual nature. They actually have fault because when people came to the island of Madagascar, they established their own customs, their culture, their way of life. And unfortunately, believe it or not, the Fossa actually suffer, many animals on Madagascar suffer from superstition. In fact, there are many tales and legends about how Fossas and other certain animals in Madagascar bring bad luck, which can make protecting them by the local people not impossible, but a little bit of a challenge. And of course, that's not the biggest problem. Their biggest problem for Fossa and all other animals is deforestation. In fact, sadly, it's a high percentage of their forests have actually disappeared in the last many decades. As you can see by this graph, or as you can see by this picture, here's how it was when we first came. Then 1950, 70, and of course as recently as the 90s, and the number continues to shrink. So it's with all the deforestation going on and loss of habitat as well as poaching, protecting them is a challenge, but not impossible. We can do what we can to help these creatures survive so that they can maintain as the top mammalian predators through community outreach, breeding programs in human care. So the zoos. Next time you see a birth of Fossa cubs, that's a big victory because that can help preserve the species for the next 100 years. And by studying them more. So like this camera trap was able to catch this Fossa on the trail, but we need to continue to fund research so that we can understand these animals better and we can learn to coexist better on this island nation. Well, that's all I have for the Fossa, and so join me next week as we go to a party with the lemurs. But until next week, this is Safari Mack, and I'll see you all out there. And I'd like to wish everybody a happy holidays.